discussion on what we talked about last day. And last day, what we have done is that we talked about some certification levels and which certification is mapped with our current curriculum is Cloud Digital Leader. Then we started our discussion with Cloud Fundamentals, right? And in Cloud Fundamentals, we first talked about what does it mean by cloud computing, right? Then we talked about the evolutions of cloud computing. And here we talked about how we are moving from vertical scaling to horizontal scaling. From horizontal scaling, we came to cloud computing, right? Right. And then we moved our discussions with 4 different approach that we can use to connect with GCP. First approach is our cloud console. This is nothing but a simple web application. You can create a login account, you can create a billing account, and then you can create a project and you can enable the billing account for your project. That's it. Then you can use any services under GCP. So this is a cloud console. In the second approach, we talked about to connect GCP provided services from my laptop. We need to install Google Cloud SDK in our system. Second approach is that we can connect with GCP services using an API. Mainly developers use it, as well as we can connect with GCP services with mobile app also. So there's 4 different approach.
Just one quick question. When you
Yes.
said from my laptop, means I'm not using the browser, just my CLI, right?
Yes, using CLI.
Okay. Okay.
Using CLI. Yeah. Assume you have created some code Spring Boot microservice project, and you want to send that project from your laptop to GCP provided services. Directly I can do that from the CLI.
Thank you.
Then we talked about that in case of cloud computing, we are moving from capital expenses to operational expenses. Yes, that we find earlier we had to use compute infrastructure we have to create, but in case of cloud computing, it is pay as you use policy. The services that you use, you need to pay for that. Then we moved with our discussions with GCP that it's a very big infrastructure that is running throughout the world that have multiple regions and zones. And if you see the data, total 40 zones throughout the world and 40 regions throughout the world and 121 zones. And see the naming convention that you should remember that for in each region we have standard 3 zones that will come in the naming convention called ABC. Then we moved with our discussion with cloud computing delivery model that we have 3 different types of cloud: public cloud, hybrid cloud, and private cloud, right? And you defined what does it mean by public cloud, where the infrastructure, hardware infrastructure is used by multiple vendors, or in case of private cloud, for each vendor, there is a separate hardware infrastructure. Then we talked about hybrid cloud, where organization is using all these 3 clouds based on their requirement, and that will give us one type of flexibility on expenditure, security, and protection. Next, we moved with shared responsibility, and I'm coming into that shared responsibility. We talked about using PaaS, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, function as a service, and content as a service. So in the second section, we move inside GCP. And here first we talked about different types of services provided by GCP. We talked about historical side that GCP started its service from the year 2008 using Google App Engine. We have different services on each category. storage category, some services are there, analytics category have some services are there, machine learning category, some services are there, right? Ingestion category, some services are there. So our requirement is to understand or execute those services, right? 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 Using hands-on, let's see how much we can do it. Then we talked about as a market leader, AWS is in the top level, GCP is there in the third position, but there is high competition between Microsoft and GCP as well as in AWS. Then we move towards platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, PaaS, PaaS, and CaaS. Here, CaaS is we talked about as a content as a service, and in this example, uh, Kubernetes can orchestrate multiple container based on the load from the customer. We'll talk about in details later in the upcoming session. Then we talked about software as a service. In case of software as a service, complete infrastructure given by the vendor, like our Gmail or Google Drive. Customer just use that particular infrastructure in case of software as a service. Next, we talked about platform as a service. In case of platform as a service, it's providing a platform, a deployment platform for your application. Like if you want to deploy some Java or Python application, it's giving us one type of deployment platform for your application, like Google App Engine. Then we talked about infrastructure as a service. We need it when we try to use some VM, virtual machine, you know. And so, that comes under infrastructure as a service. And then we talked about first function as a service. The first concept come into picture where I don't have to manage the backend infrastructure, backend server. Hence, without managing the server, I'm going to deploy some code inside the server. Same like our wireless headphone. Without managing the where, connectivity is going on. I can listen to the music, right? But I don't have to manage the where. Same like that. I don't have to manage the server, but I can deploy my code inside the server. That comes under first, or that is an example of serverless architecture. Next, we moved with, yes, next we came here from GCP IIM. So last day we talked about till here, right? Now what you find in GCP IAM, it is related to some security for your service. So if you remember last day we talked about, there is different security challenges in an organization. Now to handle this different category of securities, cloud have an excellent solution. Cloud, especially GCP, has an excellent solution to deal with these all category of security. And GCP provides this security in these layers: operations layers, network layer, identity layer, storage layer, software layer, and hardware layer. So when you're going to create, when I'm going to get any instance from GCP, so automatically there is a chip called Titan. In the hardware infrastructure, there is a chip called Titan. The Titan chip very easily can do synchronizations with the software, and it has an excellent storage. The network is also, it provides security in the network layer also. And there is a set of people always sitting on the back end who is monitoring the infrastructure of complete GCP. So in each category, there is a security in GCP. Now we're talking about, we are starting our discussion with the identity layer. That is identity and access management that we talked about as GCP IAM. So in GCP IAM, what you find is that we'll get an overview level here. Just see the idea. Identity and access management, what you're talking about here is that first we'll talk about who is going to access a particular service. So who is going to access a particular service? It has a technical name. Its name is principal. You remember that. What does it mean by principal? Principal means someone who is going to use a service. So assume I have a Google account. So what I have done, I'm going to access a GCP service. So who is going to access a GCP service? That is called principal. Our Google account, you can define it as a principal. Now we have given one term called service account for an application. What does it mean by this? Let us understand using an example. I'm just writing here. I'm creating a new file. Let me see if we can create a new file here. I'm creating a new file, and this file is related to GCP app create. Let me just show you here that principal. You can understand who is going to access a particular resource. That is called the principal. If I have a Google account, I'm going to access a particular service. So I'm a principal. Now there is a concept called service account. Now let's understand this using a diagram. I'm just talking about here about
Is
service.
principal is the same as the root account, or?
Yes, principal is as for example, I have created my Gmail ID, right? And using a Gmail ID, I'm going to access my Google. So here I have used my Gmail ID to access Google. So this is the principal. This is my Gmail ID, right? To access GCP services. So this is the principal, right? Okay. Now here we have another one point that I'm talking about. We're talking about service account. Service. What does it mean by this? Principle is clear, right? There is no doubts. I have my Gmail account, and using Gmail account, I have created. I'm going to access any GCP services, and this is my Gmail account. This is called principle because I am going to access service. Any service, if I'm going to use, I'm going to use any service. So currently I'm logged in with this user ID, this email ID. So this is the principle, right? Now here it is saying that Google account, service account, cloud identity that can access a resource. Generally, it is an email ID. Now here one term is used called service account. What does it mean by this service account? Let's see, I'm just talking about using an example just for understanding point of view. You got this term first time, assume. What does it mean by service account? Let's get an idea. Let's see, this is a VM or server. Okay, this is a server, and this server we got from the GCP. So what does it mean? It is a server. It is a server. It is a. I'm just writing like this. It's a server. Server. Okay, I got this server from GCP, right? And inside this server, assume one web application, one grocery application is running. This is a grocery app is running. Grocery app, just short form, is running inside this server and web application. Correct. Now this grocery application is running inside this server, right? Now this grocery application have lots of images. It has lots of images. So there is a service in GCP. Its name is cloud storage. Cloud storage. Cloud storage means where you have all the images. All the images it is used to image, PDF. Okay, you can store inside the cloud storage, right? So you can see that this is your server where your grocery application is running. This is a cloud storage. It's another one service from GCP. This is also a service from GCP. This is also a service from GCP. This is a server. And this is a cloud storage service. Both are services from GCP. So what you have done is that you have taken one server from GCP and you have deployed one grocery application, right? And you are a principal as an so you have access to this complete applications. So you can just write it like this, that as a principal, you can log in this application, in this complete server as a principal. You have access as a principal, you have access to the server as a user or principal, you have access to this server to access an web application, right? That's it. That is. Now the scenario is, see the scenario, you have access to the application that is deployed inside the server. As a principal, you have access. Now see, you have a cloud storage, it is a service to store all the images. See, if you have a grocery project is running inside a server, this grocery project has lots of images for your vegetable items, grocery items, non-veg items, all the different items. You have a huge amount of images, and all the images stored inside this cloud storage service. All the images is stored inside this cloud storage service from right. So this grocery application, they store all the images inside the cloud storage. That means here we have this read, grocery application can read and write all the images inside this cloud storage. Now the scenario, just see here, principal means the user who is going to access the application. Now see here, this is principal who is going to access an application. Now see here, grocery application is deployed inside the server. This cloud storage is here. Now, if you have an account, that does not mean that grocery application can read and write images inside the cloud storage, right? If you want grocery application to read and write inside the cloud storage, then you need a separate access. One application is going to do read and write to another one application. So you need a separate access. That is called service account. I'm just taking an example. What does it mean by service account? I'm just using this example so that everyone can remember it. You'll never forget. When one application is going to do read and write permission to another service, when one service needs read and write permissions to another service, this is called service account. We have to create a service account sometimes. Sometimes GCP will give by default some service account that we talked about, right? That is the idea behind service account. So as a layman's language, let's explore more. Now see here, we talked about that in case of GCP, first we talked about principal. Principal means your Google account or service account, means who is going to access a resource. Resource can be accessed by an user or resource can be accessed by a service account. Who is going to access a resource or service is called the principal. This is the technical name. Fine. Now, the second scenario is can do what? If I am the principal, so what I can do with a service? I can edit a service. I can view a service. So what I can do, that is talking about a role. I am a role like view data, update data, delete data. These are the role for a particular principal. A principal can view data for a particular service, update data, or delete data. That comes under role can do what? It's a collection of permissions. Permissions determine what operations are allowed on a resource. When we grant a role to a principal, we grant all the role that it contains. We have another one example that is called on which resource. Means on which cloud resource an user can perform. It is inside a compute engine or it is in a container engine that is defined with the help of a policy, a JSON file. So what we'll do is that we create a JSON file as a policy document for a particular resource and we attach that particular policy document under the role so that the principal who have that role using this policy can have access to that particular resource. Let's see an example. Just see here in our GCP service. What I'm doing is that in the left side, now we have access to our all the services. So I can access our GCP IIM. So in the left side, I'm just going here, IIM admin. So this is the service, GCP service. So if you go inside this, you can go to IAM. Let's go to IAM. If you go inside IAM, then you can see here, I came inside the IAM. Now, they've written something, permissions on the project. So I'm using this project, right? Fine. Now see here, just see here. If you see, there is principal is written. So principal I am the principal. This is my mail ID. Principal can be a service account. So these are the default service account created in GCP. And this is my email ID. So I am the principal, right? Fine. Now this is called principal. Principal can be a service account. Who is going to do the task? Or principal can be the email ID, right? Now, each and every principal have some role. See here, if I am the user, I have some role. Application app engine deployer role, BigQuery admin role, Bigtable viewer role. So these are some of the roles, owner's role. So these are the roles for my user. If it is a service account that have some role to edit. If it is a service account that have some role to edit. So each and every principal have some roles associated with that. Now you can see here view by roles. You click here view by roles. You can see here these are the different roles, and under each roles you have some principles, right? Under each role you have some principles. Now what I want to do that I want to grant access some role to an email ID. So you can click grant access. When I click grant access, I want to grant access some role to the principal. So assume I have some principal and its role email ID is gc@gmail.com. So this is my another one email ID. So what I want to do is that I want to grant access some role to this principal email ID. Fine. So what are the roles you are going to assign? You can assign the roles. OK, you can see here different types of roles are there. I can add these are the different roles are there. You can add different roles as you find it here, right? See here for each. So if what type of roles you want to add, just you can see you can add that particular roles for AI platform. I want to add AI platform admin role to this user. Right, like this way, you can define, you can add multiple roles to a particular user. Right, so here what you're talking about that just to get an idea that is required because in each service that you're going to access everywhere you have this. What is principal? What is role? Policy, I'll come after some time, you'll find that. So who is going to access a particular resource is called a principal. and what task done by that particular principal, what uh, the role that is defined as a role. As for example, this principal have editor access. So that means this principal have an editor role. This principal have these roles. This principal have these roles, right? So each and every principals have certain roles, and uh, that principal can do only that task. Which roles you are going to assign to that particular principal, right? So you can just cross check using just example. I'm not implementing anything because we need to do some more uh, service interaction. Then I'll come with this GCP IAM after some time, because here before moving forward we need some service interaction. Still now we have not done any service, right? Just we should have the idea. Yes, this is principal, this is role, right? Fine. Now let's move to this agenda here. First time we are moving with GCP services, that is GCP compute services. GCP compute engine, infrastructure as a service, means if I need a particular server that comes under GCP compute services or GCP compute engine, right? So if I need a particular server, right? So here we have some concept called load balancing, auto scaling, high availability. We'll talk about them one by one. Let's understand it one by one. Now see here, this is a picture that will give us complete Google infrastructure. Just see here, we talked about, right, all the services we categorize into infrastructure as a service, container as a service, platform as a service, and function as a service. It is the image for that only. When talking about virtual machine, that comes under infrastructure as a service. Talked about container, that comes under container as a service. And I say about apps platform, that comes under uh, platform as a service. And when talked about function, that comes under function as a service. So this complete Google infrastructure, all the services, you can categorize into this fold. Now we'll talk about this layer, infrastructure as a service, or virtual machines if I want to get. Now here what it is saying is that scalable, high performance virtual machines. Google Compute Engine delivered virtual machines running in Google's innovative data centers and worldwide fiber network. Compute Engine's tooling and workflow support enable scaling from single instances to global load balanced cloud computing. Now here, when I say compute engine, then these things come into picture. These are nothing but your disk. So when you're talking about disk, disk is talking about images, networks, firewalls, regions and zones, instances, load balancer, auto scaling. All these things come into picture when we talked about compute as a service. Now, when you create any particular machine, there is a different types of machine. See, I need a server. If I need a server, that server should have different categories of server is there, like high CPU, standard, high memory, shared core. Different types of server is there. Based on your requirement, you can use any one of the server. I'm coming into details. In the compute engine part, we have different types of disk. We have persistent disk, we have local disk, we have RAM disk. Different disk has its own, we have ephemeral VM. So different disk has its own features. But before understanding that, let us just show you here. Let's see, I'm going to create a particular server. I'm going to create a particular machine. Let's understand from here. If you go now, see here, I'm going into another one GCP service. Its name is Compute Engine. In the Compute Engine, what I need a particular virtual machine or VM. So let's go to the VM instances. Under Compute Engine, we are going inside VM instances. Right? So if you go inside these VM instances, what you find here, you can see these are the instances that we have created earlier. You can select it and you can just select and you can delete it. Actually, we have created these instances earlier when is doing some other demo. Similarly, let me delete this one also. So what I want first time is that I want to create an instance. I need a particular server. Assume the requirement just now I've given. I need a particular server where I want to deploy grocery application. Right? So if I need a particular server, what I can do is that I have to go for create instance. So I am going to create an instance, right? So click here, create instance. Now see here we try to understand all the features one by one. Now when I'm going to create an instance, you can see here it is coming with the instance name by default. I'm not changing the instance name. There is some features how to create an instance name. This instance that I'm going to create, it will be created inside a particular region. So that region can be an, you can see here, we talked about that there is 40 regions throughout the world. So out of which we have used one region, US Central 1. Already I told you that for each region there is a zone. Standard is 3 zone for each region. That is a standard. But in some of the regions you will find 4 or 5 zones also. As for example here, US Central 1, there is total 4 zone. Standard is 3 zone for each region. It's okay, we can going with this zone. Now you can see your machine configuration side. I need a particular server and that server, the requirement is, what is the requirement? Just I'm given the scenario is that I want to deploy grocery application. I want to deploy grocery application. For this, I need a particular server. Right? So it's a simple web application, right? It will not take huge memory. Simple web application that I want to deploy. So you can see, so for this, it is coming with a by default E2 series. And you can see its memory is 1 to 128 GB. Now, if you are going for any game application, you have to use high memory. If I'm going with some deep learning application in AIML, right? So based on your requirement, you have to use a particular series of memory with a particular vCPU, right? Fine. On the right side, you can see there is some price, hourly price or monthly estimate they have given. Right now, next, let's see, you are going to use some deep learning applications, right? For this, you need a particular server. So deep learning application means what? Deep learning application means you have to use GPU or NTPU, correct? So you can select the GPU. In that case, see, it is selecting the GPU type NVIDIA. And you can see here what type of GPU, and you can see the storage for deep learning application, because deep learning application, you're going to train your model with billions of parameters. So there, NVIDIA already created different types of disk for this, right? So you have to use any one of the category of GPUs for your business requirement, right? But in our examples, we are not going to use any GPU, right? We are going to deploy our application in a simple, we are going to use a simple web application that I want to deploy inside my server. For this, I need a particular server, right? So I've just selected a server E2 that is coming by default. It is coming with E2, and you can see it is memory is 1 to 128 GB, right? Fine. Now it is saying that machine type. So here, if you see this machine type here, it is giving E2 medium. By default, it is coming. You can see here 4 GB memory. No, I don't want to use this one. See here, just now told you that there is 4 type of machine is there. High CPU, standard, high memory, standard code. So high CPU, high memory, standard code. For in each section, you'll find different categories of machines. See here. So what I'm going to do is that we are going to use standard core that is coming with 4 GB memory, right? 1 to 2 vCPU. That is enough to deploy simple web application, right? So I'm going with this based on my own requirement. Now, next you can see here available policies. I'm going with the standard for the time being. Next, it is saying that EC2 require spot provisioning model to terminate your VM. Okay. Now here, I'll talk about it later. For the time being, you can see here, I don't want to go for containerized application for the time being. Just I need a server. Or my requirement is just I need a server to deploy an web application, right? So based on that, it is using a bootable disk by default. You can see it is using Linux bootable disk. If you want to change the bootable disk, you can change it. It is using by default 10 GB. It is one type of persistent disk. Persistent disk means that can store some value. You can see here there is different types of disk. Persistent disk means persist and independent of compute. It is one type of block storage. You can store some value. Okay, now here we can select the default one that is given to us. Then it is saying service account. So for the timing already told you that who is going to access your service, right? That is service account, right? Service account can also access an application, right? Right. So by default it is coming with a service account. You can see here compute engine service account. I'm not going to do anything for the timing. I'm going with the default input. Now here you can see firewalls. If you are going to access and have deployed application inside a server, there should have some firewalls. So what is our requirement? Our requirement is that I want to deploy some web applications inside the server, and from outside this web application should be accessible. If I write here, if I write here, if I write here, if I write here like this, that from outside, http colon double slash http colon double slash localhost or some IP address. Okay, so if I write here like this www.mygroceryapp.com, right? If I write here like that, I should access this web application, right? So if I want to access this web application here, I have to use in the firewall allow HTTP traffic. Then only I can access our application by default in the port number 80. By default, if I select this checkbox, allow HTTP traffic, so I'll suggest, yes, please, I'll recommend that, yes, you can select this checkbox so that by default it will support the port number 80. Then you can move with create. So it is saying that make sure all the fields are correct to continue. All the fields are correct only. And now here is saying anything else that I have to do. It is saying terminate virtual instance. migrate recommended. Okay, you can go with that. Click create. You can see here we have see, initially when I'm going to interact with this compute engine service, you will find lots of parameters. It's not possible to go learn all the parameters in one go, right? So step by steps, we'll learn all the parameters. So here, so we have created a server. It is saying that okay, let's see. So I have created a particular server. See here, and this server is running inside this uh, inside this region, inside this zone. This is the internal IP. This is the external IP through which I can access the application that is deployed inside the server, right? So I've just created one instance. You can see here, I've just created a simple instance, right? If I want to go inside this instance, you can check some more details about this instance. Like got the name of the instance, current status is running. It's created this particular time. It is created inside this region, inside this zone, and right. So this simple instance that you have created, right? If you want to go and get some more information about this instance that just now we have created, uh, you can explore different tabs. Now here, the instance that you have created, currently it is in the running state. Instance is running. Now you can see in the right side, you can stop an instance. This instance is a multiple lifecycle phase. You can stop the instance, you can suspend the instance, you can delete this instance, right? You can view the logs of this instance also. So if you click here, view log, you can see the logs for the instance. For the timing, we have not done anything inside the instance. I can see here. You can manage, you can see the complete log files, what is going on inside this instance. For the timing, we have not using anything. You can, there is a separate dashboard to see what is going on inside this instance, right? But for the time being, we are not using anything else. So what I'll do is that I'm going to compute engine and going to VM instance. Right now, see what you're doing is that you're doing these things. First, what you have done, create a new instance from the Google Cloud Console. Yes, just now you have done. We have created a new instance from the Cloud Console, and you can see the instance is running. Active state. If you want to go inside this instance here, I want to see, you can go open in the new browser window. Just I'm moving inside the instance. Just now we have created. And as you find, it is GNU Linux 11, Debian GNU and Linux 11, right? So let's see the internal file system inside the instance. So it is checking. Sometimes it may take some time, but we are in the office network. It should work fine. So if you find anything is not coming, you can try it once again. Just see here and just I'm going inside the instance. Now you can see here that we came inside the instance, right? Let me check the file system. Yes. Yes, you can see these are the same file system inside my instance, right? And you can see it is working. Now here I want to go once again inside this path. Let me check Control C, CD, Control V, enter. Right, we came PWD. Right now, this instance is running. That is means this instance is running. Now what I want to do inside the instance, the second task. See the second task that I want to do. Install an nginx web server. So if you know nginx, what does it mean by nginx? In Linux, if I want to install an web server, that is called nginx. So this nginx by default, it comes with a simple web application. So what I try to do is that we want the instance that we got, we want to deploy an nginx web application, the default web application provided by nginx. So how to do that? So currently we are inside our instance. So this is the instance, right? So if I want to deploy an web application, here, what I'll do, first right here, sudo apt-get. You know, these are the Unix command update. First, we have to update sudo apt-get update. Enter. So first we have updated, right? And the next step is, I'm just writing it here. First step is we have copy, right? Update is done. Next step, what we have to do is we have to deploy an nginx web application here. So how to deploy an nginx web application? You can write here sudo apt-get install nginx. Is that I'm going to install it. I'll move step by step. Now here, see, I'm going to deploy. I'm going to install an nginx application inside the server. So let's install an nginx application. It's a web server actually. This web service is coming with a default web application, right? So this is the second command we have used. Control C. We can send just writing so that everyone can do the next phase. This is Control V. So this part is right. So once it is installed, okay, so it is installed, right? Now what I want to do is that I want to check it is installed or not. So to do this, let's go here. You'll find the external IP. Right now I want to check that whether this application is running or not. Just click on the external IP and you can see the application is working fine. Just now you have deployed, right? So it's working fine. So that the first task is first two task is over. First task is create a new instance from the cloud console. So that's the first task. The first task is create new instance from cloud console, right? And the second task is just now you've given install ngInx in the server, right? So these two tasks, everyone can do it. Please implement. Will take 5 minutes time. I'm just so now it is will use 5 minutes. Let's try these two tasks. I've already shared the command. First, we have to create a new instance from Cloud Console. Who have already account, who got the account, everyone can do it. So first, create the instance. Just remember, when you're going to create the instance, you can use all the default option. You have to enable allow HTTP traffic, else you cannot access the deployed application with the HTTP port. And so once it is done, you can install ngInx inside the server. So let's try once again. We are in now. We'll wait 5 minutes so that everyone will do complete it. And if it is done, please share yes in the communication window. Or if anyone have any questions, any queries, console. If I see whatever you have done using this console, you have created an instance and deployed an application inside the instance. But when you go inside Google Cloud, you know, we should we should we should create the instances using CLI. CLI means command line argument. So you can see here, I'm just selecting top right side, active cloud cell, activate cloud cell. So what happened is that you can create an instance using CLI also. That is a very important uh, to connect with an instance using CLI, to create an instance using CLI.
So
Now see here.
the one we're using was not that CLI, or what was that?
No. It is you're using the console. This is a console, right?
Oh,
You create instance. So this
okay.
is a console. It's a
Oh,
console. It's
okay.
not CLI. CLI
Oh,
is this one. I'm just coming through command line. You are going to create an instance.
I see.
When you're
Okay.
creating an instance, you are not creating from the command line. You're creating from this link. Right? So the next step, what we talked about is that how to create an instance using CLI. Now to create an instance using CLI, we used one command called gcloud. So that you're talking about here. So you can see this, if you just click here, activate cloud cell, it will come like this, right? So if I want to execute any command using CLI, so what you have to do here, the task 2, task 1 is done. Task 2, I'm going to create an instance using command line. So from where I'm going to fire the command? From here. From here I'm going to fire the command, right? Now the question is that what is the command? Right? How to fire that command? I don't know something, right? I'm doing it first time, right? So what is the approach? Approach is that you have to say that if you have to write any command related to compute engine, this is the compute engine part. You are going to create an instance or server. This is a part of compute engine. We use one command. Its name is gcloud. You remember that. Using gcloud, we write a command. So what is gcloud? I need some information, right? So do one thing. Just write here in the google.com and just write here gcloud API documentation. Right here, gcloud API documentation. right? So enter. I'm just writing gcloud API documentation. Google Cloud APIs, gcloud API. Let me just check if it is coming from here. You're talking about gcloud API documentation. Let me check if it is coming here. No. Compute engine, not this one. I just show you gcloud API documentation for creation of instance. Let's see. So you can see here Google gcloud compute instance creation. So this is the API documentation that you need. Okay, this is the API documentation that we need. I'm just sharing this link with everyone. Control C. What you've done is that you have opened gcloud API documentation. Everything is here. See what we want. We want to create an instance using gcloud. So what you want? We want to create an instance using gcloud. So if I want to create an instance using gcloud, what should be the command? Right? So in the left side, I'm using gcloud. What's the command? I want to create an instance. Right? What's the command? So gcloud, then you'll find compute. Gcloud, compute. Then what I want to do? I want to create an instance. So they will find compute, then instances. Right? So just click here, instances. Right? So in the right side, you can see gcloud compute instances create. Right? So copy this, Control C, and write it here. Control V. Already have written it. Now see here, gcloud. I'm just saying how to create. Gcloud compute instances create. Done. Now what I have to do? I have to create an instance. What is the name of the instance? Write the name of the instance as my instance 2024. Right now, this instance has a particular type. How to get this type? The instance has a particular type. How to get that type? I have no idea about the type, right? You can see here there is a called create. There is a called instance type here. Here you'll find machine type. How to get the type, right? So you can do one thing. In the existing instance, you have that type. Go in the instance, existing instance that already you have. Just giving you the scenario. In the existing instance, you'll find here the machine type. See here, machine type is E2 medium. Right? So that I'm going to write here. This machine type is E2 medium. Machine type means from where it will come. It will come from this documentation. Let's see, we don't have this. Machine type is written here in the documentation. Machine type, see, this is that kind of machine type, right? So you have to select this one, machine type. Control C. So Control V, machine type equal to E2 medium. That's it. So in which zone I want to create it? So there is an option here. The key zone. There is an option called zone here. There is an option called zone. See here. Zone. In which zone I want to create it? Control C. So zone. What is the name of the zone? Same zones you can define where you have created earlier. So earlier I have created the instance inside a zone. All this US Central 1A. Control C. So I'm going to use this zone. That's it. This is the minimum things, right? This is the command that you have to execute. Create an instance using CLI.
So this is another instance you're creating, right?
Yes, I'm going to create another one instance, but this is using CLI, using gcloud.
But using the same name, right? Or no? Oh, you did not put the name. It
See,
will
it's a different name. Create instance name, machine type E2 medium, zone, same reach zone I'm using. So let me just check. Control C, copy it. Not supporting because we have given some space here.
yeah.
So just remove this space.
My instance 2024. This is another unique name, right? It must be another name, unique
Yes,
name.
this would be an unique name. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So Control V. You have to authorize. See here, we started to create. It's going on. And it should create another one instance. It's going on. See, it's created the instance with this name. Right? It's running. So you have to just refresh this window. Refresh it. You can see another instance created. And this time, this instance is created using CLI. It's working fine. Right? So,
202404.
right?
Could you put the command on the chat?
Yes, I'm just putting it here. Another just see another one option here is there. Another one option, like if I want to now see currently I have how many instances running. I want to see all the instances. How many instances running currently, right? So how I can check? We can use the command here, top left side, like gcloud compute instances, then you can find list. Means total number of instances that is running currently. I want to see. So if you just click here, we can see the command will come here. See here, command can just copy this command, Control C, and paste it here, Control V, just to see how many instances is running currently. Just copy, just command Control V, enter. So I can see all the instances that is running currently. So currently 2 instances running. So it is giving the instance details. Not only that, if I want to describe an instance, I want to describe this instance. So in that case, you can go for, again, you can go for compute, gcloud, compute, then can go for instances. There is an option called describe, something like that, describe. See, I'm getting it from the API documentation. You don't have to remember also. Everything is in the API documentation.
Okay,
Just
how did you create that CLI that
okay.
that command line where you yeah put the CLI
Okay, I'm just saying it. Here
concept?
you can just, I'm just saying, you can just write this command Control V, and we are going to use this command here. You can just going to use this command here, Control V. If you want to describe an instances, you can use the
No,
instance.
I'm saying that this cloud shell which you created.
You have to click here. To click here. There is an option called Active Cloud Cell here, top right side.
Top right side.
So if you write here, gcloud compute instances, describe my instance. Will be, it will show you. You have to define the instance name to execute the full. And this is not in this zone. You can write N. You can see it is describing all the instances. Fine. Let's come to